So my Uncle Dale, he always, like, he can still spin a really good tale. Like, growing up, like, he would just always tell us these stories where we believed it full-heartedly. Now you know my whole family is like this. It's not just me. But, like, the one I'm thinking about, we were in Colorado. We were at our cabin in Colorado, and he was outside. And, like, this was one of those years. This might have been the year that I threw up all over the car. We never really know. It all runs together. But, like, this is one of the years that, like, all the cousins were there and, like, all of our families were there. And so it's, like, me and my cousin Scott and Katie. There's two of them, then they're both a year younger than me, and then my sister, who's 2 years older than me, and then my cousin Hannah, who's just, like, a little runt running around. But, so my uncle, he's outside, like, grilling something on the grill. Well, it's not really a grill, it's like a fire pit. So we go over, like, Uncle Dale, what are you making? He's like, kids. He's, like, looking around, like, making sure there are no adults. He's like, do you really want to know what this is? I'm like, well, yeah, the chicken, because it looked like chicken. And he's like, no, it's not chicken, but if your parents ask, it's chicken. And we're like, what is it? What is this? And he's like, well, last night while we were all asleep, these aliens landed on top of the cabin. And we're like, oh my gosh, aliens landed. And they land on top of the cabin. And how it works, like the setup of the cabin, there's like 4 bedrooms. One bedroom is like the master suite. That's where my grandparents would stay. One bedroom had 2 full beds. That's where my mom and my sister and I would stay. And then this other room had 2 full beds, and that's where my cousin Katie and her family would stay, and like Hannah and her parents. Then there's a bigger room that had like 4 beds in it, and that's where like Dale's family would stay. So that bedroom also has a balcony on it. So the aliens landed, and then like they came in through that balcony door. And that's where Dale sleeps, right by that door. And like he's like, they were trying to come in and take all the kids. The aliens were. And so then he like proceeded to tell this like epic battle that just him alone, because these were like stealth aliens, like they were silent, like nobody heard anything, but he fought off all these aliens. And he put their UFO in the river, and it just like went downstream, because there's like the river stream thing was like right behind our cabin, and to get rid of the UFO. But the aliens, that's what we were having for dinner. He cut them up, and we were gonna eat these aliens for dinner. And we're like, oh my gosh. So dinner comes around, and like my family, like we eat, like we love to eat all the time. Like it's food. And so we're eating, but like, so it's dinner time, like everyone's like, ah. And like, this was back when I was like a huge carnivore, just like all my cousins. And like me and all my cousins were like, pass the carrots. And they're like, what about the chicken? We're like, no! Don't pass the chicken. And Uncle Dale's like, just like, like eating the food. And like, our parents are like, what the frick is wrong with our kids right now? Like, why the fuck won't they eat the chicken? And they're just like, I want a salad. Which was like not like young Jenny at all, but like we believed that because he was just such a good storyteller. I was like, great. Don't eat the chicken, Mom. Mom, don't eat the.
I wish I was told more fake stories.
I wish more of my life was a lie, is what you just said.
No, because, like, I used to really love telling, like, lie stories, you know? Like, okay, my little sister once asked me how your food turns to poop or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, duh, you have teeth in your stomach, you know? And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, you know, every time you get a stomach ache, it's another tooth coming in. I'm like, are you serious? You've never heard of this. And she's like, no. She's like, do I have to go to the dentist? Like, she was so confused. She was like, what happens if they fall out? I don't poop teeth. And I'm like, yet. Like, duh. And she was like freaking out. She was positive she had teeth, like, lined with, like, her stomach was lined with teeth. And she was believing it so hard. And finally she goes and asks my dad, and my dad fucking ruined it. I was trying to make faces at him and be like, yes, Dad, there are teeth in your stomach. And he's like, oh yeah. And then Brianna was like, oh, you liar! You mean, I never believed you. And she still says she never believed me. But she totally fucking believed me. She was like,
eating it up. She didn't.
Yeah, she was like, oh my god, like I should get these teeth checked out, you know? She was like super worried about her health.
Teeth plaque, no stomach plaque. There's this plaque in my stomach.
I really like that.
Teeth.
That was fun for me.
That was really funny story.
Just making up stories. Well, it's like Quentin. Like I told my nephew, like once I was driving with him, which he shouldn't drive with me because I'm a bad driver. But he was in the back seat, and I was driving, and you know, like those little rumble bar things on the side. Like I kind of went over it, and he's like, "Auntie Jay, what was that?" And I was like, "Well, honey, those are road dragons," because he's all about dragons. He's like,
That's awesome.
He's like, "Road dragons?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, road dragons." He's like, "What are they there for?" And I was like, "Oh, well, they make sure that Auntie Jay stays on the road. They just remind me." He's like, "Hit another one." I was like, he's like, "Road dragons!" And then my sister, like, a week later, she calls me, she's like, "What the fuck are road dragons?" I was like, "Ew, I'm lying to your kid." I'm like, "Just play along, I'm like, rumble bars. Come on, don't you have an imagination? Damn. But it was, I still, like, every time I hit, like, those bars, I'm like, road dragon.
That's pretty cool.
That is super awesome.